In 1965, a dog was strapped into a harness and given electric shocks. Some dogs could stop the shock with a nose press. Others had no control at all. The shock came and went regardless of anything they did. Then every dog was placed in a box divided by a low wall. One side electrified, the other safe. Any dog could escape just by jumping over. The dogs who had learned control, they jumped. They escaped. The dogs who had learned none, they lay down on the electrified floor and accepted the pain. They had learned hopelessness. By the end of this file, you will know whether you are lying down in a box you could leave and exactly how to make the first jump. The psychologist was Martin Seligman, then a 23-year-old graduate student at the University of Pennsylvania. He was trying to condition a fear response in dogs, a standard classical conditioning setup, but something went wrong. After the conditioning phase, when he moved the dogs to the shuttle box, the divided box with the low wall, the conditioned dogs did not try to escape. They just sat there. Seligman and his colleague Seligman Maier ran the experiment 3 ways. One group had control. A nose press stopped the shock. One group had no control. The shock was inescapable. And one group, the control, received no shocks at all. In the shuttle box, the first and third groups learned to jump in under 10 seconds. The second group lay down. Most made no attempt to escape. The finding, published in 1967, had a name: learned helplessness. The dogs did not fail because the shock was painful. They failed because their past had taught them that nothing they did mattered. Here is the mechanism, because the shock is not the point. The dogs were not exhausted. They were not injured. They were not less capable of jumping than the other dogs. They had formed an expectation: nothing I do changes the outcome, and that expectation, once formed, overrode the evidence of their own eyes. When they arrived in the shuttle box, their brain did not scan the new environment for an exit. It already knew the answer. The answer was that there was no answer. This is the difference between pain and helplessness. Pain is a sensation. Helplessness is a belief, a stored prediction that effort and outcome are disconnected. And once that belief is locked in, it behaves exactly like a fact. You stop looking for exits because the file says there are none. The obvious question: do humans do this too? In 1974, Donald Hiroto designed the human version. Subjects sat in a room with a loud, grating noise playing through headphones. Some could stop the noise by pressing a button, others had no control. The noise ran its course regardless. Then all subjects faced a new task: a hand in a box with a bar they could slide to stop a new noise. Simple, obvious. The group who had control in the first phase found the bar in seconds. The helpless group, the ones who had experienced uncontrollable noise, sat with their hand in the box doing nothing while the noise played on. They did not try the bar. They did not search for a solution. They had learned that solutions did not exist. But here is the detail that should stop you. Some subjects in the control group never actually pressed the button during the first phase. They just knew they could. And they still outperformed the helpless group. The mere knowledge of control changed the outcome. The belief was the variable, not the action. One more layer, because helplessness has a grammar. In the late 1970s, Seligman and a colleague named Lynn Abramson analyzed how people explain bad events to themselves. They found 3 dimensions that determine whether a failure teaches helplessness or resilience. First, is the cause internal or external? I failed because I am stupid versus the test was hard. Second, is it stable or temporary? I always fail at this versus I was tired today. Third, is it global or specific? I am bad at everything versus I am bad at this one thing. 3 dimensions: internal, stable, global, the 3 Ps as they came to be called: personal, permanent, pervasive. When a bad event scores high on all 3, the mind builds the belief that suffering is your fault, will last forever, and will infect everything you touch. That belief is the harness the dog never takes off. Now watch where that grammar is taught. In 1975, Carol Dweck, then a graduate student, studied how children respond to failure in school. She gave a class of 5th graders a series of math problems. The first set was solvable. Then came a set designed to be too hard for their age. Some children took the failure as a problem to solve. They tried harder, tried different strategies, asked for help. Others sat and waited. When asked what they thought, they said things like, "I am not good at math. I never will be. I am just not smart enough." Internal, stable, global, the full set recited like catechism. Dweck followed the two groups. The first group, the ones who treated failure as information, improved. The second group, the ones who treated failure as a verdict, declined. Not because their ability differed, because their explanation of failure did. The teacher who told a child he tried hard taught resilience. The teacher who told a child he was smart taught fear of looking dumb. Well-meaning praise can install the harness. But the most striking evidence that helplessness is learned and not a fixed property of character comes from a nursing home. In 1976, psychologists Ellen Langer and Judith Rodin divided a nursing home floor into two groups. One group was given responsibility. You choose where to arrange your furniture, you pick a plant to care for, you decide when to receive visitors. The other group was told, the staff will take care of everything for you. We will water your plant, we will arrange your room. You deserve to rest. 18 months later, the responsible group was significantly healthier, more active, more alert, and half as many had died. The residents who were cared for, the ones given no choices, declined faster. They did not need to be shocked. They just needed to be told day after day that nothing depended on them. The nursing home was the harness. The staff were the experimenters. And the residents learned helplessness the same way the dogs did, not through pain, but through the steady withdrawal of contingency between effort and outcome. Here's the question you came for. Can it be undone? In the original experiments, the answer was yes, but not the way you would expect. You might think the dogs would unlearn helplessness as soon as they accidentally escaped once. They did not. The researchers had to physically pick the dogs up and carry them over the wall again and again. The dogs resisted. They had to be shown, by force, that the other side was safe, and even then, the learning did not stick after one try. They needed to be carried across the fence at least twice before they would attempt it on their own. And after that, something shifted. They began jumping. They began escaping. They began acting like dogs who had never been helpless at all. The mechanism was not insight. It was evidence, forced, repeated, undeniable evidence that the prediction was wrong. The first jump is always the hardest because the file says it cannot be done. There is no shortcut past the first jump. You just have to be carried, or carry yourself the first time. So here's the tool, the cognitive equivalent of being carried over the fence. It comes from Seligman's later work, Learned Optimism, and it is called the ABCDE method. 5 steps, 1 minute. You can do it in your head or on paper. A is the adversity. Name the bad event. The test I failed. The conversation that went wrong. The project that stalled. B is the belief. Your automatic explanation of why it happened. I am not good enough. I never close deals. This always happens to me. C is the consequence. What that belief does to you. You stop trying. You feel hopeless. You wait for the next failure to confirm the pattern. Now D, disputation. This is the step the helpless brain never takes. Argue with your own explanation. What is the evidence? Is it really always? Is it really everything? Can you find one counterexample? One time it did not happen. One factor outside yourself. One thing that could change. E is energization. Notice how you feel after the dispute. The hopelessness has a crack in it. You move again. That is the whole method. A, B, C, D, E. Adversity, belief, consequence, disputation, energization. The harness comes off in the D. Let me show you what D looks like because most people skip it. The adversity, you applied for a role and did not get it. The belief, I am not qualified. I never get what I want. Everyone else is ahead of me. Internal, stable, global, the full set. Now dispute, personal. Is it really about you? The hiring panel had 17 candidates for one slot. 17 of you were qualified. They had to pick one. The other 16 did not become unqualified by losing. Permanent. Can it really never change? You did not get this role. That is a fact. You also did not get the role before this one. Then you got the one after. One door is closed, you're reading the other doors from inside the harness? Pervasive? Is this failure leaking into everything? You were not hired. That does not mean you are a bad parent, a bad friend, a bad cook, a bad reader, a bad human. The brain treats one failure as evidence of total inadequacy, but you would never accept that logic from a friend. Apply the same standard to yourself. 3 questions. That is the dispute. And the energization comes from noticing that your original belief was not the truth. It was one possible interpretation and not the most accurate one. Now, the uncomfortable page of the file, because you are in the middle of this right now. Every time you think, I cannot do this, I am not the kind of person who succeeds at this. It is too late for me. I have tried before and it did not work. This is just how things are. Every time you stay in a situation that has stopped working, a relationship that gives nothing back, a job that drains you, a skill you quit learning years ago, not because you lack the ability to leave or change, but because somewhere along the line you learned that effort does not matter. You are not lazy. Laziness is a choice. You have been trained by repeated experiences where your effort did not change the outcome to stop trying. And the cruelest part, the evidence that would break the belief does not arrive on its own. Because you stopped trying, you never produce the counterexample. The harness is self-sealing. The dog that does not jump never discovers the wall is low. Go back to the first experiment one more time. The dogs who were carried across the fence twice began jumping on their own. Not because the shock was less painful, not because they suddenly became smarter, because their brain updated the prediction. Seligman later wrote that this single finding changed the direction of his career. He spent years studying helplessness. Then he turned the question around. If helplessness can be learned, he asked, can optimism be learned too? He spent the rest of his career proving that it can. The Penn Resilience Program, built on the ABCDE method and the disputation framework, has been taught to over 1 million people, soldiers before deployment, students before exams, employees before restructurings. In controlled trials, it cuts depression rates in half. The belief that nothing works is just that, a belief. It was learned. It can be unlearned. The brain that formed the prediction can update it. The file can be rewritten. This file is declassified now. Carry it with you. The next time you catch yourself thinking, I cannot, it never works. What is the point? Stop and hear those words for what they are, the echo of a harness you are no longer wearing. Name the adversity, name the belief, name the consequence, then do the only step that matters, dispute it. Is it really always? Is it really everything? Is it really you? The wall in that experiment was 1 foot high. Most dogs could clear it without even trying. The obstacle was never the wall. The obstacle was the belief that the wall might as well be a mile. The cage door has been open the whole time. The only question is whether your file has been updated to say so.